Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relative Security, and today we are going to start another series regarding national cybersecurity strategy. Why do nations need to have cybersecurity strategy? What do they do about it? How do they respond to different threats or cybersecurity? How do they approach it? We will discuss it in a short while. So, the first thing that we are going to discuss is digital transformation. At a very short summary, it would be an integration of digital technologies into society, economy, and governance to bring about significant improvements. So it refers to the integration of digital technologies and it involves utilizing those technologies like AI, IoT, and big data to transform traditional systems and processes. So at a national level, when you talk about it, it would include adopting these digital technologies in the government agencies, public services, and your critical infrastructure to ensure that the citizen engagement with the government services, with the public services, are enhanced and the operations to ensure that those services are reaching to the citizens in a secure manner. You have to ensure that this all comes under the digital transformation. Globally, it encompasses the widespread adoption of digital technologies and practices, enabling digital connectivity, cross border data flows, and global collaboration. If you talk about the examples, it would be the e governance platforms, digital healthcare systems, international e commerce, and remote work. So, basic aim would be to drive innovation, economic growth, and improved services while ensuring that the global connectivity and productivity is at its best. Another terminology before diving into the discussion about the national cybersecurity strategies would be the cyberspace. So, it's a term that is used to describe the digital arena in which the electronic communication and computer based activities take place. It is a domain that is created by the interconnection of computers and communication networks. Under this cyberspace term, your physical infrastructure of the internet, such as the servers, routers, whatever is uh, being used to ensure that your internet is up and running and it's connecting entire infrastructure. All your software and applications that run on those servers and routers and are able to ensure that your data is being transmitted and secure and is saved securely on them. Sorry. It is a critical component of any modern society. And because it is used for your communication, it is used for your commerce, your entertainment, and countless other activities are dependent on your cyberspace. One thing that is important to mention is as it is very important, so is its perception that it will be attacked. How it will be attacked? Because it's very critical for the nation, for the nations, for the societies, for your economic and social aspects, the adversaries are going to take advantage of that, and you will be, and the cyberspace is under constant threat of cyber attacks, cybercrime, and cyber espionage as well. So the next terminology would be naturally cyber threats. So these cyber threats refer to the potential malicious activities or attacks on any computer systems, network, or digital devices. These attacks can be carried out by individuals, groups, organizations, or any state sponsored people with the aim of stealing, modifying, or destroying the sensitive data, disrupting operations, or causing harm to the targeted system or a network. Now, We have discussed the digital transformation and the key role in any digital transformation journey is your increased reliance on technology. So, when you have increased reliance on technology and the growing interconnectedness of digital devices and networks, the threat landscape in cyberspace continues to evolve and becomes more and more complex. So, what kind of threats are we talking about? So, there are two types of threats that we will be discussing here. Some of them are global level and some of them will be national level. The global level cyber threats, they have the potential to affect multiple countries or even the entire global cyberspace. For example, the global level cyber threats includes large scale cyber attacks on critical infrastructure such as power grids or financial systems, cyber espionage campaigns carried out by state sponsored actors, and proliferation of malicious software, such as ransomware that can infect computer systems around the world. These global level threats are usually sponsored by the states. When you talk about the national level threats, they are the cyber threats that primarily affect a specific country or a region. These threats can include attacks on government systems, critical infrastructure, and businesses that are specific to a particular country or any specific sector. For example, a attack on a country's election system or a government agency would be considered a national level threat. So, why global and national level threat? What would be their impact on any sector, any economy, any nation? The impact of cyber threats on a national security is not limited to cyberspace. There is a very huge discussion going on currently in the world that how much is the impact of a cyber threat? Should the countries, when they are responding to their these attacks, stick to only cyberspace or they are allowed to go into the natural realm of response to the nation state actors or any other nations where whoever are hostiles. In fact, cyber threats can have a significant impact on physical and non-physical assets as well as critical infrastructure systems which can ultimately affect your national security as well. For example, a cyber attack on a country's power grid or other critical infrastructure systems can lead to widespread power outages and disruptions to the economy, transportation, and other essential services. Now, if these l- one of the few that we discussed, economy, transportation, or any other essential services, if these are affected, they can cause significant social and political unrest in your country. A cyber attack on military systems can compromise the entire national security secrets and put the safety and the lives of military personnel at risk. Additionally, cyber attacks can also be used to disrupt communication networks, which can impede the ability of the governments and military forces to coordinate during the time of crisis, conflicts, or any other kind of disasters. This can lead to an ineffective and inefficient response to the national security threats and ultimately weaken a nation's defense capabilities. So, it is important for nations to recognize the impact of these cyber threats on national cybersecurity outside of cyberspace and take appropriate measures to mitigate these risks. For example, before we used to discuss about the attacks on land, navy, or the airspace. But the cyberspace has become another dimension which has its own kind of challenges. For example, the speed of the network, jurisdictions, and its clandestine nature. Any individual in any part of the world can attack any country. Now, that country, even though the impact is quite high, cannot pinpoint quick enough to respond back to that particular individual. He cannot be traced. Secondly, the speed of the network. If one virus gets um, starts spreading across the environment, across the networks, there is no limit or there is no quick fix that you can stop or contain that attack from spreading unless you get to know about the specific kill switch of that spread. Otherwise, it will keep on spreading. All the networks are connected, internet is connected. There is no stopping any virus that has gone viral. So, where does cybersecurity comes in? The cybersecurity refers to the practices, technologies, and processes that are being used to protect these computer systems, networks, and sensitive data from unauthorized access, unauthorized use, disclosure, disruption, and modification or destruction of any data. It involves the prevention and detection and response to these cyber attacks, as well as implementation of measures to ensure that the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information systems and the data is protected. So, when it comes to nations, we need to understand how are nations responding back to these cyber attacks. There are different ways in which the nations are responding to these attacks, and they have to because um, the internet, digital transformation, e-governance platforms, public services, they are becoming so critical that they are also becoming part of your critical infrastructure like power grids or any other installations that the nations have to respond, the governments have to respond back to these attacks. So, how are they um, replying back? They are ensuring that their national strategies and policies are in place. They are doing enough research and development in their cyber technologies, or at least they are using the cyber technologies that are coming into the market in a proper way. Then they need to have partnerships with the relevant stakeholders to make themselves aware of latest cyber attacks and then deploying different cyber agencies. Now, it could be national cybersecurity agencies, it could be already implemented, already developed agencies, government agencies who are given additional charge for ensuring the cybersecurity within the country. Then there needs to be some legal frameworks, regulations on the usage of data or usage of internet. Then at a national scale, governments need to be responsible and be prepared for incident response and risk management. Last but not the least, they need to ensure that their government employees, their nation, and overall as a culture of the country, they are cyber aware and they should be aware of their duties when it comes to using the cyberspace. Because cyberspace is basically a strategic domain that is being used by every person within any country. One of the things that we will be discussing in detail is the National Cybersecurity Strategy. How and why countries develop the national cybersecurity strategies, and what's the content in it, and because it provides you the vision, high level objectives, and what are the principles and priorities that the nations or the governments should have when they are dealing with the cybersecurity in terms of defending their state? Because uh, it provides the platform to align with the existing policies and objectives that the countries or that the governments have usually, and it is essential for ensuring that the nations achieve their socio-economic objectives, and it basically translates the government's vision into implementable policies. So while they are defining the national cybersecurity strategies, they need to have basic principles. So some of the principles that have been listed are that they should set a very clear whole of government or whole of society vision. So the national cybersecurity strategy should set a very clear vision to ensure a comprehensive approach towards cybersecurity. It should ensure that the involvement and commitment of all relevant stakeholders, including government agencies, private sector organizations, academia, and civil society, is there. They are all involved in ensuring that the national cybersecurity strategy becomes their priority. By adopting this holistic perspective, the strategy can effectively address the diverse challenges of the digital environment while considering the unique circumstances and priorities of that particular country. Another point is that it should foster socioeconomic aspects. It should be developed based on a comprehensive understanding and analysis of the overall condition of the country, the digital environment, and the national context in which they want to develop this strategy. Because it is very important that the strategy is tailored to fit the unique circumstances and priorities of that particular country. This will ensure that the strategy is effective and relevant and addresses those specific challenges that are required by that particular government or the nation that is developing the strategy. Another would be that they should have an active participation from all relevant stakeholders. We have already discussed this, and this must be the case that it specifically addresses the challenges that the government or the nation is facing in terms of the cyber security. Another aspect is that the fundamental values that government has or the nation has, they should be upheld at any cost, such as privacy, freedom of expression, and human rights. Because when you are aligning with these values, the strategy will ensure that cybersecurity or any other implementation related to or relevant to those cybersecurity programs does not compromise the individual rights and liberties while protecting and ensuring that digital environment of the country. And it should also enable an efficient management of cybersecurity risks and drive the resilience of that particular economic and social activities. It should incorporate risk assessment methodologies and mechanisms to identify, assess, and mitigate potential threats. For example, by proactively managing risks, the strategy can minimize the impact of the cyber incidents and safeguard the critical system services. Now, when you talk about the existing policies, existing vision of the country, it should also utilize the appropriate policy instruments that are available to achieve its objectives. And it could include any legislation, regulations that the country has already developed. The capacity building programs, public-private partnerships, and international cooperations are really, really important and integral part of any initiative towards increasing your cybersecurity. When it comes to defining that who is responsible, strategies should also ensure that the highest level of the government has a very clear vision on who is who and what are their responsibilities. This top level commitment ensures that the cybersecurity is a priority and necessary resources will be provided to the digital and cybersecurity team to ensure that the digital environment is cyber resilient. Last but not the least would be the trust, because ultimately that cyberspace of that particular country is going to be used by the public. So the national cybersecurity strategy that you are building should foster a digital environment that citizens and businesses both can trust. So by ensuring that the robust cybersecurity measures are in place, and you are promoting the cyber awareness sessions as well, and you are establishing mechanisms for accountability and transparency, this kind of strategy will build confidence in your digital ecosystem. Trust in the digital environment that you're providing to your individuals, your people. This is very important because ultimately the governments are providing services through their e-governance frameworks, and the ultimate users are your own people. They need to have trust in the government systems that they are developing, that their data, that the whatever information that they are sharing, the internet that they are using provided by the governments is secure. So when you're developing cybersecurity strategy, so the first in the last slide we discussed about the different principles that they have to make sure that they are followed. The other would be the best practices. Some of the best practices that have been mentioned by the relevant organization which have provided the guidelines to ensure that the governments develop the national cybersecurity strategies. These best practices are provided by them as well. So we will discuss them one by one. First is the governance. To ensure effective cybersecurity, it is essential to secure the highest level of support and commitment from the government and top leadership, as we discussed in one of the principles also. So because this involves providing clear directives, policy statements, and adequate resources to the relevant team to ensure that they have um, crucial resources available to oversee and enforce all those cybersecurity measures that they want to implement. Secondly, inter-government cooperation should be provided, and it should be encouraged to facilitate information sharing and coordinated response efforts. Because if there is no coordinated response towards the cyber attack, even if your one arm of the government is secure, the other is weak, ultimately the whole cyber ecosystem will be disturbed. So allocating dedicated budget and resources is vital for implementing robust cybersecurity measures. So that has to be taken care by the governance framework or the governance, whatever governance model that the nations use, it has to be taken care under that. So finally, a comprehensive implementation plan should be developed outlining goals, objectives, timelines, and milestones to achieve those objectives. And then, of course, like any other project, regular reviews are important to ensure that the objectives are being met. The second would be the risk management. So, any initiative taken by any organization is usually, sorry, is usually taken after the risk management. In this case as well, at the national level, when you're developing a cybersecurity strategy, it is important that you define a risk management approach that addresses the cybersecurity challenges at the national level. This includes identifying and assessing and mitigating cyber risks across different sectors and critical infrastructure under your government. And a common methodology should be established to ensure that all the cyber risks are dealt with according to that particular common methodology. A robust strategy must include the establishment of a comprehensive cybersecurity policies that provide the guidelines and regulations and standards to govern the cybersecurity practices at national level. Third one would be the resilience. Resilience is very important because when the people are using your public services, they need to have trust that the system will not break, their data will not be compromised, or it will not get into the hands of cyber adversaries. It involves creating a dedicated team and infrastructure with trained personnel and efficient processes to ensure that the contingency plans for any kind of crisis are developed and step by step directions are available that in case some attack happens, those plans could be used to ensure that the services are operational and the preparedness of the team is at the required level. Now, these are all technical discussions, but legislation or the regulation part of the government is also very important because it should it should ensure that the critical infrastructure and the services do adopt a clear risk management approach. Clear governance is defined with ensuring that the responsibilities and roles are very clear and everybody understands their role within the market. Basic minimum baseline should be developed, and financial incentives and regulatory frameworks should promote cybersecurity investments and best practices. Capacity building. This is another very important practice that must be adopted, is that the national cybersecurity strategy should prioritize developing cybersecurity curriculum and simulating skills development to build a capable workforce. Ongoing training opportunities and collaborations with academic institutions and industry partners are very essential to ensure that the well coordinated awareness program is implemented for educating the public about cyber threats. The next would be the critical information services. When it comes to national cybersecurity strategy, it must be prioritized because the critical infrastructure and the services are very critical for your governments, for your because any problem with your critical infrastructure will not have impact in that particular sector, because those critical infrastructure will have impact in your and your out of cyberspace as well. This impact would be on your social life of the people, on the economic life of the people, and the government must ensure that they invest in the education, skill awareness, and innovation so that, as we discussed before, that the system are resilient, people are well aware of their duties when it comes to um, protecting the infrastructure, because if they are not following those best practices, um, there are chances that the the entire culture or the entire ecosystem of your digital transformation will be at risk. The last point that we want to discuss is the cooperation, because cooperation is very important when you're talking about the national level. It is not only that that your government agencies should be coordinating for implementing that cybersecurity program, that whatever you have developed. It is also important that the governments look outward toward the international collaborations with the international organizations to ensure that they are well aware of the latest cyber threats that are coming and how the governments should respond to those cyber threats. How are their neighbors doing in terms of cybersecurity? What are the attacks that they are facing? Because when the attackers go into one nation, they are not going to just stick to that specific nation. They are going to check their neighbors also, because sometimes attacks are region specific. So you have to be aware of those threats as well. So these are the different best practices and principles that we discussed about that any national cybersecurity strategy should have. In the next few series, what we will be discussing would be that we will take out any country and we will see then how, for example, how United Kingdom is doing when it comes to cybersecurity strategy, how Saudi or Bahrain or any other country for that matter are doing with these cybersecurity strategies. Are they aligned to the best practices and principles that we discussed today? If not, how do they justify their own strategies that they have developed, and what kind of direction that they are taking? Thank you so much for your time. Don't forget to subscribe and like our video. Thank you so much.